41 degrees.
What Gaddafi has done, he dismantled or destroyed the system in the country.
As chaos and violence sweep across Libya,
they're living through fear, they're living through a nightmare.
They're using ammunition, live ammunition.
Al Jazeera hears from those who have lived in fear of Gaddafi's regime.
We don't want him to leave. We want to arrest him. 42 years is too much.
Libya, a state of terror, at this time on Al Jazeera.
David Foster with the headlines for you here on Al Jazeera. Libyan opposition forces have been regrouping around Bin Jawad after pro-Gaddafi fighters recaptured the town earlier on Sunday. Bin Jawad is in the middle of the embattled coastline area between the opposition stronghold of Benghazi and the capital, Tripoli. A British Special Forces team captured by Libyan opposition fighters outside Benghazi has been released. They were reportedly part of a diplomatic mission seeking to make contact with anti-Gaddafi forces. And in Egypt, protesters trying to enter a government building in Cairo say they've been attacked by security forces. Hundreds of people want to collect documents which they fear might be destroyed. Now, worldwide efforts underway to repatriate foreign nationals who are trying to get out of the violence in Libya. Pakistan, for example, has more than 18,000 workers there. The government facing criticism because of the way it's handled the evacuation. Kamal Haider reports from Islamabad.
This might be the first time these Pakistani oil workers come back home empty-handed. No presents for the family and no wages. Despite having lost everything, they're grateful to be home. Stranded at the airport for days and without food, many shared their experience of the ordeal.
The situation was very critical in Libya. We were lucky enough to save our lives.
While they praised their local Libyan employees for helping them leave, they've complained their own embassy did little to help.
We are very happy on our soil, but the government of Pakistan has done nothing for us.
Pakistani embassy officials maintain they are working with the local authorities in Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt and Turkey, and officials have been dispatched to the Libyan border to receive its citizens. As Pakistan joined the long list of countries to evacuate its stranded citizens, there's criticism abound that government is doing too little too late, offering sympathy but little support to some 18,000 Pakistanis still left behind in Libya. Kamal Haider, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Saudi Arabia's banned all demonstrations after a series of minor protests in the oil-producing eastern province. Mainly Shia demonstrators gathered in the towns of Qatif and Hufuf on Thursday and Friday, demanding the release of all prisoners being held without trial, as well as better access to jobs. A rare video has been published online of the protests in Qatif, appearing to show heavily armed police confronting protesters who were chanting anti-government slogans. The video is linked online to the March the 11th Facebook campaign, which calls for a day of protests against the ruling family. Other news now. Truck drivers in Gaza are on indefinite strike. They're protesting against Israel's permanent closure of the commercial Karni crossing in the north of the Strip. This leaves the Kerem Abu Salam crossing in the south as the only way for goods to get in and out of Gaza. Nicole Johnston has more from Rafah.
Here at Rafah, hundreds of Gaza's truck drivers are on strike. They've blocked the entrance to the Kerem Abu Salam crossing, and that means at the moment no supplies can get in and out of Gaza. Now they're striking because Israel has closed the Karni crossing, and the drivers are saying that they won't work until it reopens. Now, Karni used to be the main export and import point for Gaza, but when Hamas took over, Israel closed it, except for gravel and grain, and now Israel has shut it down completely.
كارني هو عبارة مجهز على كل الحاجات
Karni is a well-prepared crossing for security and infrastructure. It's cheaper. It's closer to the city, to the factories, to the warehouses and to the wholesalers. In addition, from the Israeli seaport to the crossing, it's only 35 to 40 kilometres. But Kerem Abu Salem is 3 times further than Karni, and its capacity is very limited. It's also more expensive.
Now, Israel says that it's closed the Karni crossing for security reasons and that it's expanding the capacity of the Kerem Abu Salem crossing. But for people in Gaza, that's not enough, and businessmen and drivers here, they don't believe Israel. They say that they had a perfectly good crossing in the first place that never should have been closed, and that this is in fact another attempt by Israel to tighten the siege. Nicole Johnston, Al Jazeera, Rafah.
The Afghan President Hamid Karzai has rejected a US apology for the mistaken killing of 9 Afghan boys in a NATO airstrike last week. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of the capital, Kabul, on Sunday, demonstrating against US military operations. A statement from Karzai's office said the president had told General David Petraeus, the top commander of coalition forces in Afghanistan, that civilian deaths in his country are no longer acceptable and that saying sorry isn't sufficient. Japan's foreign ministers resigned after accepting a political donation from a foreign national, something which is illegal in Japan. On Friday, Seiji Machira admitted that he received money from a Korean resident in Japan. His departure is a blow for Japan's Prime Minister Naoto Kan, who's facing a divided party, deep economic problems and political deadlock over this year's budget. India's Prime Minister is also under pressure. The leader of the country's main opposition party, the BJP, has hit out at Manmohan Singh, accusing him of indecisiveness and an inability to tackle corruption. This is after a string of recent corruption scandals involving top officials and ministers. China's government has tightened controls on foreign media and stepped up security in Beijing and Shanghai after calls for pro-democracy protests. The security forces kept a close watch over Beijing's Tiananmen Square and possible protest sites in a bustling shopping district. Calls for the demonstration have been inspired, many say, by uprisings in the Middle East. It's the battle to save ancient woodlands from a profit-driven corporation. It may sound a bit like a plot to the hit movie Avatar. It is also the real-life story of a forest in Western Canada, earmarked for commercial logging, and the campaign to stop that happening. Imtiaz Tiab reports.
This is Avatar Grove, a range of red cedars and Douglas firs that have been standing here for between 500 and 1,000 years. The environmental campaigner Ken Wu discovered the site while exploring for ancient trees over a year ago, giving it its now widely used name, inspired by the Hollywood blockbuster when he found it was earmarked for logging. Wu says the plight of the fictitious planet isn't too dissimilar to what's happening here.
Avatar, in large part, is about saving old-growth forests on an alien planet. And we realized that we have an incredible rainforest here on Earth that needs protecting.